Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, we continue our series, Soviet Montage of the 1920s, a new cinema for a new society. We'll be screening the 1926 film Mother, based upon a novel by Maxim Gorky and directed by Vsevolod Pudovkin. This is a major work, noted as one of the 10 greatest films ever made in a 1958 survey. It's also the story of the conversion of an innocent mother into a revolutionary. We'll be talking about the film's style, its structure, its context, and more after today's screening. Joining us will be distinguished scholar of Russian literature and East European film, Emil Draitser. Now, take this journey into revolutionary Russia in Mother. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to see Pudovkin's Mother, a film we should keep in mind made 100 years ago, but remains incredibly, I think, vibrant to us today, and both in film style and in its character arc. There's a lot to talk about this film, its context, its art, and more. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to City Cinematheque a colleague from the CUNY system, now an emeritus professor at Hunter College, Emil Draitser. Emil has taught for many, many years Russian and Eastern European cinema, and in his, as we might say, his spare time has managed to publish 17 books in English or Russian. He is also someone who studies more broadly Eastern Europe and works with Polish texts as well. Emil, pleasure to have you back here.
Thank you.
Great. So let's, in one sense, where the movie starts, and that's its source. This is actually a very famous film, but it is a literary adaptation. So what's being adapted, and why is that important?
Well, when the film was issued, probably not too many people knew the director, Pudovkin, but everybody by that time knew the name of the writer on whose work was based, Maxim Gorky.
Okay.
Maxim Gorky, now it's hard to imagine even for many Russians, in the beginning of the century, one of the most famous writers of the world.
Right.
He never got the Nobel Prize for Literature, but he was 5 times nominated.
Okay.
5 times.
Okay.
So he was larger than life. And that became very important because, first of all, his origin. He comes from the lower stratum of society.
Okay.
And it was important for the Soviet system to have him as an example of how you can grow from being on the bottom of society to the famous writer and so on and so forth. So that was important.
Okay.
So, and Gorky himself, he's not known to the larger audience, of course, but his biography was astonishing because he started at the movie Mother, written as evidence of it, as a full supporter of the Bolsheviks taking over power in the country. He supported October takeover. I don't call it revolution. Right. Takeover of power.
1917, yes.
1917.
And he's already a famous author at that point.
Very famous, very famous. So he supported absolutely. And all needless to say, he knew personally Lenin and all the Bolsheviks of that time and so on. But then he was kind of taken aback by Lenin imposing temporary censorship of the Russian press at that time, presumably to fight anarchy and so on. And this Gorky could not take. He said, the whole idea of revolution is now to tell the truth, to show it, and so on and so forth. So Lenin, in a couple of years, made sure he pushed him out of the country under very kind of innocent pretext that his health is kind of need to be supported and so on. So he wind up to be in Italy, in the island of Capri, spent.
That's an exile very far from Siberia.
Exactly. Well, it was nice, right? However, that's interesting. Again, because of Maxim Gorky's fame as a proletarian writer,
Right.
Stalin, who came to power already in 1928, lured him back,
Okay.
saying, we need your support for new literature, for this socialist realism, because basically we need you, come back, we will give you all the opportunities and so on. And Gorky came back, and he did support, actually he's considered to be the father of socialist realism, which in a nutshell I'll tell my students, you describe the life not as it is, then it's social realism, but it should be.
Yes. Absolutely.
As it should be. And obviously the movie Mother, based on his book, could be taken, and actually at the time it was a correct picture of what really happening in Russia, the growing consciousness of working class and trying to fight. That's true. But later on, although he established a library of proletarian writers, and he was very important. Then he got kind of sick, and at least several historians believe that he was poisoned.
Right. He was pushed along.
Yeah, because he could not agree with everything was going on in the country. It's already was beginning.
And that's already, this is in the 1930s.
1930s, already beginning of Great Terror and the rest of it. So
this is, so let's now shift ourselves over to the moment in which the film is being made. Let's just begin with why film is important to the new Soviet government. So the Soviets take over, the Bolsheviks take over in 1917. There is an extended civil war, okay? We're towards the end of the Civil War period in the mid 1920s. So we have this incredible burst of creative activity in Soviet filmmaking in really this period from the mid-20s to the sound revolution in that. So why is it so important for them?
Well, to that extent, I have to say that one episode of my childhood, I grew up in Odessa, Ukraine. I loved cinema. Needless to say, that was the only available means of entertainment at that time. But in the movie theater, there was always on top of the screen, there was a slogan by Lenin. Of all the arts, the most important for us is cinema.
Okay.
And I thought, my God, I'm the great Lenin and so on. I also think the most important. So I didn't know.
You and Lenin agree, right?
Exactly. But it's obviously it took time for me to understand that actually it was the best tool of propaganda for the country in which large portion of population was illiterate.
Right.
And how you can deliver the ideas that were the basis of the newly formed Soviet Union. But so in that respect, the movie Mother was the thing that the government would want people to see. I start even my course when I say forget about entertainment as such. In America, many movies are entertainment, no more than that. No. In this, especially at the time of Lenin and then Stalin, the movie was only a tool of propaganda.
Absolutely.
But it made in an entertaining way. I have to say that so again, Mother recently, and I was astonished how capturing, how well it is. It keeps you on your toes all the time.
Absolutely.
You cannot predict what's the next move. That's amazing.
No, it remains an absolutely compelling film, and it in terms of narrative, we know it's a call to conversion.
Yeah.
And the mother is a character who begins, she is not well educated, she is of the lowest rank
Right.
of an urban proletariat and an abused wife.
Right.
And the overall arc of the film is her conversion to a kind of enlightenment that she must join the struggle.
And it's so believable because she starts with presented to us, not only she's downtrodden, of course, with her husband, so on, but she starts with a person who believes in decency.
Right.
If the officer of the police says, just admit, confess, and you'll be forgiven, nothing like that, she believes him.
Right. Right.
And that's why everybody understands. I myself, yeah, why wouldn't I believe it? So after all, he's official,
Right.
official of the power that be. I mean, why not? I mean, and then you understand that she was, how deceived she was, how violated she was, and how and you care for her because her son.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all what she had. She had only one son,
Right.
and a very touching moment when finally, if you remember, of course, where she asked forgiveness from her son, and he puts her hand on her hand,
Right.
and his hand on her hand, and that tells so much.
Well, and you're bringing up this fact. You also now point us towards, the brilliance of the film's style.
Absolutely.
Because, we can say this. Pudovkin is so interested in something we would frequently describe as novelistic detail. And so you've just given a very good example of that, of the shot of the two hands. And it's not just a shot of two hands, it's a close-up, and he's making sure that we can observe that as this, as this absolutely tender act
And
of
her face lights up immediately. Because she was, the only son that she caused so much grief, and all of a sudden, she lights up. Her face lights up after that. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Now, by the way, I think it's worth noting that we're dealing with a film that, first of all, she's not given so much psychology. Is the mother? She's given presence. She's given affect. But this is really about a kind of social, political, and ideological conversion. It's, the growth is about her growth of a social and political consciousness. It's not about her as an individual. It's her experience as an individual, but presumably it's an experience that's supposed to be transferred to other people as well. In one way, I'm saying paradoxically, she's highly individualized in the film to make her as representative as possible. The more we, ally ourselves with her, the more we're likely to say, well, there should be more people like her.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. In those ways. So it's it's very, and I also like to point out that this pattern of conversion, we should remember it's common to many national cinemas as those national cinemas advance their own agenda. And I would just remind everyone that Casablanca is a conversion narrative of Rick from the neutral nightclub owner to the person completely allied with the Allied cause against the Nazis. So it is a common, narrative pattern deployed for different historical and political ends by different nations and regimes.
I don't know whether you want my reaction to it, because when I watched Casablanca for the first time, immigrating from Soviet Union, where the World War II was the major event of my life and so on, I could not believe that he's neutral to.
Oh, yeah.
How come?
How could he even begin as that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but I understand it now, of course, after a while.
Yeah. Let's go back to, to Pudovkin. What do you think, aside from the choice of the structure of this conversion of this, what are the other things that strike you about the power of the film and the way Pudovkin presents things?
I think the power, first and foremost, is to show that this is somehow he managed probably through the scenes of in prison and then the riot. He managed somehow convey the idea this is not a kind of a localized event, that this is the whole country. Actually, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way, it is, if you wish, I think it's a paraphrase of the whole revolution of obviously of 1917. I mean, well, of course, the way it was wanted to present.
And it is the creation of a foundational myth of the inevitability of this revolution, because the actual action here is not set during the 1917 revolution,
right,
but it's set during the revolutionary activities of 1905, which the Soviet regime, which was not a Bolshevik,
not yet,
yeah, but then they make it the Old Testament to their New Testament.
Well, that's the scene in which several times the bust of Nicholas II, the Tsar, appears.
Right.
And then there is a red flag that travels somehow to the Kremlin.
Right.
It's clear that this is the period between transition of power. Lenin died in 1924 and 26. It was an interim period and Stalin coming to power.
Okay.
So obviously the movie itself, it just shows, trust us. I mean,
there will be. Yeah, no, and thank you for pointing out the fact that, well, the film, the last 5 minutes of the film are very interesting because not only do we have the resolution of the action of the people revolting, the people coming out of the prison, but then we really move away into a much more metaphorical cinema, in that way. And Pudovkin, one should point out that Pudovkin was not only a distinguished filmmaker, he wrote about film theory. His book on film editing was a standard book used around the world by regimes of completely different political persuasions, because his way of understanding how film can be persuasive can be used by anyone. I mean, you can sort of put in your formula of stuff that you want to have in the stew and blend it with Pudovkin style editing, and you can come out with something incredible. And so something like the ice flow and the coming of spring.
Absolutely.
And that he makes into this, symphonic metaphor of the inevitability of change and renewal that I think remains quite moving visually today. I mean,
nature take a lot of.
Please.
He uses nature, the time of trouble, the wind moving the trees around there and so on. He connects to nature, and part of it is a design, because after all, the movie was made, as we already discussed, for a vast majority of people who in Soviet Union at that time were peasants.
Right, exactly.
Who are close to nature. So for them, these pictures were, it's behind their window of their huts. It was not abstract for a city, you see, for city dwellers, okay?
Yeah.
So therefore, it's appealed directly to them. That's what you said. The river, the breakup of ice, and it's clearly made as a metaphor of
and they are. Yours is an excellent point, because this is a film that has so many interesting scales of time in it. I mean, so we get something like, in the initial scene where we have the abusive behavior in the household, all of a sudden we have that intensification of time during the fight with the very, it's a violent scene, but it's also very violent editing. I mean, we're getting 5 or 6 shots in as many seconds there. But at the same time, the film will, and just following what you're saying, will also take another scale of time and say, wait, there's the time of revolution and the time of nature, and those can be intertwined in this way. And so you must act precipitously, in a prison break or something like this, but at the same time you must have faith in the inevitability of this, which is the inevitability of nature.
But another message that was built in the movie, which he did absolutely brilliantly, it's to characterize those in power as being kind of a people of very very egoistical interests. The officers what they talk about is about a horse.
Right.
They admire, it's a good horse, and so on. And the other one shows that actually he put in pages, his listing pages, but it's all a clock. He just watches time and so on. So this is done so brilliantly. In other words, to show that those in power are actually don't have the right to have it, because they're not thinking of the whole country, just of their own petty interests.
Well, I think you bring up this very interesting point about the fact that it's a very exciting film to watch. It's a very interesting film to watch. It's also an absolutely accessible film, both to us 100 years later in the United States, but to a Russian peasant in 1928 or 29 seeing it in a village screening. Which also raises this question of the fact that, its message is not a complicated message, much less a complex message. But the point of the filmmaking is not the complexity of the ideas; it's the affect of the film. That the argument that the film is making is so powerfully persuasive. So if you're looking for, complexity of political theory, you're not going to find it in Mother.
Yeah, of course.
But if you're looking at an affective appeal to the reason to join, this is one of the places. This is one of the places to go.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant delivery on so many levels. I mean, in other words, it's hard to, as you already said, today even watching this movie, it is as captive as it used to be for their time.
Let's talk just a little bit. The acting here is superb across the board, and of course there is this interaction between the people who remain in Russia after the revolution, who are part of a vanguard, theater movements, and the filmmakers. Yet, this is also a film that has excellent acting, but pushes back about actors being, in a certain sense, the center of it. That is our relationship with these characters is created, and this is what Pudovkin preached, as much by his composition of shots as it is created by the acting of the characters.
Yes, I mean, you basically look at this, the actor who plays son, Pavel Vlasov, became larger than life actor later on, and he's especially very effective in the movie that was done, the first sound movie.
Oh, okay.
That it was about the orphans, actually based on a true event, about how orphans, after obviously civil war and so on, how they were Road to Life. It says the title in English.
Right, and a highly regarded film globally at the time of its release.
Exactly. And he is the major, actually, the most charismatic actor, and he's made in the movie. He's made of a veteran of Civil War.
Okay.
So there's a continuation of it. Yeah.
Right. And Pudovkin is one of the people who continues to work within the industry. He finds ways to work with Stalin. And so when many of the other filmmakers of this magic moment of the Soviet montage, they come into conflict in any number of ways. But Pudovkin seems to find the way through. And that has to do with his adopting many of the principles of socialist realism, in which you have this strong, ideologically motivated protagonists who, as you so put it so well, are going to create the world as it should be, and that future, that glorious socialist future that's just on the horizon, and then you can see it. But that's what the movie is about.
Well, the official kind of platform of social realism means to show life in its revolutionary development. In other words, not as it is, but how it should be in a coming up. Okay,
and that's where we're going to have to end our discussion, with life in its revolutionary development. Great.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about City Cinematheque, or more broadly about CUNY TV and what's going on the station, there's a way to do so, and that's to visit our website, www.tv.cuny.edu. And we've got some other great news for you. If you visit that site, you'll be able to get our new CUNY TV app, CUNY TV on the go. You'll be able to see CUNY TV by using our app. So please visit www.tv.cuny.edu and join everything that's happening here and get our app. Emil, what a pleasure to chat with you as always, and for you to bring such a wealth of knowledge to our understanding of this film.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Good. Look forward to our next discussion, my friend.
Thank you.
Good. And I look forward to the fact that you may be tuning in to see more of our discussions here on City Cinematheque as we continue our stroll through the archives of film history. For now, it's goodbye.